Dr. Lisa and the ARRC wildlife team are swinging into action as those unending mystery boxes turn up with injured wildlife, all requiring the team's urgent attention. But making a difference in the lives of animals is what Holistic Vets and ARRC are all about. The day is in full throttle already, and there appears to be some form of dog conference going on in reception. But first of all, you may remember Saph from last week, a cherished 14-year-old dog who has endured everything from a tumour in her stomach to being hit by a car, and Dr. Lisa is concerned about the extent of her injuries. Heartbreakingly, Saph's owners were faced with a difficult decision to make for poor Saph, and for Dr. Lisa too, who has known Saph and looked after her for years.
Sadly, last night I was called out to put Saph to sleep. She just didn't manage to come back, and the pain from her joints, the arthritis that was compromised by her old age and being overweight was just too much, and her quality of life was no longer good enough to justify keeping her going. And thankfully, as vets, we can end pain and suffering. There's some really good drugs that we can help to give doggies to send them on their way. So when I went to their house last night, Saph met me at the door, and she was cheerful and bright, her front end doing nicely, but of course her back end unable to move. But we took her through to her bed, and she lay down, let me give her a nice tummy tickle, and I injected her with a little sedative, which just put her into a nice deep sleep. And with her lovely owners gathered around, we're getting heaps of cuddles. We gave her another injection of an anesthetic, and the anesthetic just puts her into a much deeper sleep, but the overdose makes her heart stop. And then I'm sure she went off to doggy heaven and is now wearing a nice halo, and she'll be remembered for being such a wonderful doggy.
Let's take a moment to remember Saph and the abundance of love she brought to her family over the years. Wherever life is full of sadness, it is also full of the hope, faith and the courage of pet owners. We check back in on Pisa, the cat who is paralysed from the waist down, who Dr. Lisa and her amazing team have been giving lots of TLC, determined to do all they can for this precious girl and her courageous owners. With tears, remembering the day of the accident, Pisa's owners, Jazz and Deb, tell us that their cat Pisa has taught them the real meaning of unconditional love.
With Pisa, now when you take her home, what is going to be involved in like the ongoing care?
It's going to be huge. It's really exciting and really scary at the same time.
Yeah.
I'm pretty scared, but happy at the same time.
She's only had her for 2 months and 3 weeks before the accident. So before Jazz came home, she was just this cute cat down the road.
Yeah.
That I'd visit 5 minutes at a time and go home and forget about her. And then when she came to live at home with us, she just became instant love. And Jazz would say to me all the time, she's my cat, Mum. Don't get too attached.
Pisa's owners have been learning about the massive responsibility of looking after a handicapped animal, and they have a journey ahead of them. We wish them well, and we'll update you again at the end of the series as to how Pisa is getting on with a progress report. What do you do when your pet has been so hyper and full of anxiety that you and the dog are almost driven to the brink and don't know what else to do? Well, Dr. Lisa, always keen on finding ways of helping to make a difference to the lives of her patients and caregivers, has learned a method of treatment that Memphis responds to well.
Memphis has always been a hyperactive and slightly anxious dog, and Katrine's worked so hard to look after him, but ever since he had an accident where he ran into a car and knocked himself unconscious, we've been managing him really carefully just to get his pain under control with injuries that he sustained. He's been making really good headway, but his anxiety and sort of hyperactivity issues have been amplified. We've tried a number of drugs and various therapies, but this therapy that we're doing now, called NIS, or the Neurological Integration System, it's a really powerful means of helping animals. And in my search for therapies that would help to make a difference to animals' lives where I didn't have any other tools, it can really help to rebalance things, and we have lots of animals that come into us that respond beautifully. So this has been Memphis's godsend, because without this treatment, Kat reckons she would have been forced to put him to sleep.
Pretty much booking him in to be put down.
Oh
Like,
my
it
gosh.
just got to a point where it was out of control, everything.
Nearly done. Be patient, hey? I know that's really hard.
Obviously it's not long term. Good boy.
Okay. Good, you're done. Hey, but did you just need to do that for the camera so that Uncle Graham and Auntie Kylie know what you're doing? It's very thoughtful, Liv. She's, yep, you need to know what a man really is.
Good boy.
Coming up after the break, what can Dr. Lisa do for a hawk with a broken wing? A baby duckling is needing some urgent help, and the age-old question, is it or is it not okay to feed your dog chocolate? Now fresh, 100% grain-free natural pet food for dogs and cats. Brought to you by healthypetfoods.co.nz for a healthier, happier pet. A mother and daughter have just brought their rescued baby duckling into the clinic, hoping that there is something that Dr. Lisa can do, as they've grown very attached to it. This baby duckling has become quite the character, following them around the house and even to the bathroom.
Yeah. Would you guys want me to put him to sleep now? So I start? Yeah. Sorry. Did you want to take him home to bury him? Yeah. Okay. I'll go and sort him out and I'll bring him back out to you. Yeah. Sorry, guys.
That's right.
One last couple. Yeah.
If it came last night.
He'll come back as a little ducky, no doubt.
Go on to my throat.
Oh, it's hard. Okay. Well, you know, guys. Yeah.
Sadly, Dr. Lisa has some not so good news after examining this sweet baby duckling. And to alleviate any further suffering, Dr. Lisa needs to send this little one off to duckling heaven.
Thanks for trying, guys.
That's right.
Yeah.
Thanks for your allowance. Yeah.
No worries.
In between the manic mayhem of the day, and on a lighter note, we catch Emma, the queen of cat communication, in deep discussions with Pisa, the cat, who has become quite the celebrity around this place. Okay, so Pisa has just let Emma know the next patient's arrived. But between tending to sick and injured animals all day and Dr. Lisa seldomly getting the chance to take a break, we catch her finally downing some lunch straight from the saucepan in the space of about 30 seconds, just to keep her strength up as the next patient arrives. Meet Paul and his gorgeous dog Ted, who is finding it increasingly hard to walk, and discusses his concerns with Dr. Lisa. Ted, she agrees that this little guy is suffering from some pain in his hind quarters as well as some inflammation showing on Ted's teeth. Dr. Lisa chats about a plan to help Ted, which includes a combination of gentle exercise, massage, and a wholesome diet with some nutraceuticals, herbal medicine, and homeopathic remedies.
Off with this plan, and then in 2 to 4 weeks, give us a ring, or we'll give you a ring just to check in. And if he still hasn't made enough improvement, then we'll make him up a herbal and homeopathic brew as well, and take it from there. And each step of the way, we'll just tailor make his program. And if that's not doing enough, then we can do some more hands-on treatment. Yeah.
Yeah, well, I agree with the diet thing, because I sort of, the last couple of months, we've sort of been watching him, and what you're saying is, like I was saying about the food, you know, he's always been a fussy eater anyway, but what you're saying sort of melds with what we've been observing anyway, so I'd love to give the diet thing a go.
Fantastic, that's brilliant.
Hawks are such majestic creatures and can live up to 30 years in the wild and 60 years in captivity. But what happens when one comes in with a broken wing? Can it be cared for and eventually rehabilitated back into the wild? Lisa checks the hawk over. Now, for some interesting hawk facts you may not have known. Hawks can see up to 8 times better than humans, and hawks can see in colour. Hawks are able to see a rabbit at a distance of 2 miles. The next day after eating, hawks cough up a pellet that contains only the fur or feathers of the animal that they ate. Awesome! We'll check back next week to find out how the hawk is doing in the care of ARRC's volunteer, Chrissy. But for now, helpful hints with Dr. Lisa. Is it okay or not for your dog to eat chocolate?
Well, chocolate can be incredibly toxic to dogs. Dark chocolate is more likely because it has a higher concentration of some ingredients in there that can compromise their heart function. So be very, very careful that your dog doesn't have access to any chocolate. Some of the chocolate treats that are made for dogs are made more of milk chocolate or other ingredients that don't have those toxic components. So that's a lot safer, but be very, very careful. One time I had a dog to put to sleep. Her name was Sally, and often when I put doggies to sleep I go into bed at home, and when I walked through the door I saw this big bar of chocolate on the table. And I didn't think much of it, but got taken through to the lounge where Sally was snoozing away, and at good old 18 years of age she'd certainly had her time, and it was time to send her off to doggy heaven in a nice peaceful way with the good drugs. But just before I went to sedate her, her owner said, "Oh, I'm just going to go and get Sally's treat." And she went off and got the bar of chocolate, because apparently every day throughout most of Sally's life she got a little piece of this dairy chocolate that she really loved and enjoyed, much to my amazement. And we sent Sally off to doggy heaven and she was fine.
Whoa, that was an exceptional story about Sally. But Dr. Lisa still advises us strongly that chocolate can be dangerous and must not be fed to dogs. Coming up after the break, Dr. Lisa is about to get down on the farm to see a sick calf, a sheep having problems, a stallion who keeps getting stressed when the mares come in season, and a miniature horse who enjoys Dr. Lisa's magic touch. And what is up with this deer? You'll come back now, you hear? Go! Energy-packed natural food for dogs and cats, brought to you by healthypetfoods.co.nz for a healthier, happier pet. powerhouse vet Dr. Lisa is occasionally called out to home and farm visits in between her busy schedule and tells us one of her famous stories on the way out to the farm.
We're on our way out now to see a whole variety of farm animals and our wonderful client Cat. I love going out to farms. One time I had these alpacas that I used to visit. Their names were Jimmy and Stuart, and I used to have to go and trim their hooves and give them general health checks. And alpacas, their biggest insult to you is to spit at you, which is kind of tricky. So I went into the paddock, cornered the boys, and managed to dodge their spitballs, then started to trim their hooves, but they got really fed up, and the final insult was just basically to sit down on the spot and illustrate to me that they're so unimpressed, which was a very handy opportunity to be able to trim their hooves without too much hassle.
Today, she's been called out to Katrina's farm, where a calf, sheep, horse and dog are all needing her help.
Hey Cat, how you doing? Good, how's it going?
Good, thank you.
Hey girl, that's not right.
I'm going deaf, so we don't hear much anymore.
Dr. Lisa greets Cat and her dog, named Girl. At 16 years of age and having had a rough life, Girl has been under Cat's care for the last 2 years and is still thriving as a working dog. Now over to the horses, Tommy and Gypsy. Tommy is quite the stud, but at this time of year he becomes very stressed with all the mares around. Rightly so. An injection of vitamin B helps to keep him content and happy. Gypsy has been under the weather for a few days with a swollen face and a sore leg. With some treatment, she should start to feel better and be back to her normal self in a few days.
Okay, I reckon let's give her an anti-inflammatory just to help settle everything down and see how we go.
And keep on with the tablets or what?
The Traumeel.
Yeah, I've been
absolutely
doing those every day for the last week.
Good,
now,
good. Yep. If it still hasn't settled by Friday, then we'll make a stronger combination.
This young calf has been scouring, has lost condition and has now developed some breathing issues. Dr. Lisa suspects an infection and prescribes some antibiotics to help him recover. Lily the sheep is a good old girl and a few weeks ago was looking poorly, but has improved after a course of some great nutritional supplements. Kat is concerned that she may have arthritis and wonders if there's more that can be done to help her.
Is her movement pretty stiff?
It's really like the front feet when she's walking. She's actually crossing them over like that when she walks.
Okay, cool. So let's just have a closer look up there. Sorry, girl.
Girl.
Next, Dr. Lisa heads out to Mokoroa for one more visit with Rebel, the miniature horse, and a family of animals who would be unlikely paddock mates. But this place goes to show that all species can live in harmony. Dr. Lisa uses the same method of treatment on Rebel, the miniature horse, that she used on Memphis, the dog, earlier. As you can see, our Rebel is loving this treatment. Dr. Lisa explains more about what she's doing for our Rebel friend.
So Rebel's had a sore back for a little while, and Tracy's been figuring out a number of ways to try and help him, some of which have made some difference, but he hasn't come altogether right. So part of what I've tried to do through my career is figure out how I can make a difference to animals where the usual tools just aren't doing a good enough job. And one of these therapies is called NIS, or the Neurological Integration System. And I use this and it kind of looks a little bit flaky, but it's amazing. The animals respond beautifully, and the nice thing with animals is they don't really do the placebo effect. So we get some fabulous results.
This has been a busy day for our Dr. Doolittle, Dr. Lisa, but she's still smiling and soldiering on as always, doing her best to make a difference to the lives of animals. This is like old MacDonald's farm with every species you can imagine. Be sure to join us for next week's show. We catch up with a special dog called Buffy, the dog who cares for all the orphan kittens. We find out the amazing work of the ARRC wildlife team. Super Sue has a school visit, and what is in this box that has got these kids so excited? This series has been brought to you by ARRC Wildlife Trust and Bush Forbes Barristers and Solicitors, caring about the health of our animals and our environment. And by Healthy Pet Foods and Pet Curian. Good nutrition for a healthier, happier pet.